our first panel, high speed, high volume recognition, a game changer. So we really are in the world of instant gratification and instant consumerism, aren't we? We don't want to stand in long lines to book movie tickets. We also don't want to go store to store, keep trying on clothes. Everything is happening online. If you post a picture on Instagram or Facebook, you want to see those likes happening right now. Well, in fact, apart from our coffee and maybe our fine wines, those are the only things which are really worth the wait, aren't it? Everything else we want now. And of course, this trend is pervading the business place too, the workplace. It is pervading the mentality of our millennial workforce. They don't want to wait till the end of a year for that year-end appraisal. They want to know how they're doing, and they want to know now. I dare say, I don't think they care about the bell curve. Really, they want to know. They want instant recognition, instant rewards. So today in this panel, what we're discussing, does HR need to rethink its touch points? We all know there are a lot of organizations who've already done away with their appraisal system. Is this for better or is it for worse? Only time will tell. We're trying to figure out, is there a right mantra? Is there a fine balance that we can kind of find? So this is what our very interesting first panel of this conference will discuss, the need for changing the recognition systems in organizations and what they should encompass. So with that, it's my privilege to invite our esteemed panelists. Chairing this session, ladies and gentlemen, is Avdesh Krishna, MD and Global Head HR, Wholesale Corporation, Nomura Bank. Could we have you on stage? Welcome, sir. As part of our panel, we have Indra Sovakar, Senior VP HR, Genpact. Welcome, ma'am. We have Anuranjita Kumar, MD CHRO, Citi South Asia. And we have Richard Lobo, Head HR, Infosys Limited. Really a warm welcome to all our panelists. We're really looking forward to this session. It's over to you, of course, Avdesh.
Good morning. When I was invited for this session, I wondered why was I selected to talk for velocity, and for millennials. And then I thought I need to prepare, because looking at myself, I don't think I match either the millennials word or the velocity word. I don't go for marathon at all. So first thing I did was I went and I got my hair colored, so just to at least try to look closer to millennials. And then I couldn't start running yet, so I'm back with myself as I am. However, it's very, very interesting topic, and a few things that I thought I'd like to share right at the start is, it took almost about 38 years for the radios to reach out to 50 million population. Just about 13 years for televisions to reach to 50 million population. But for internet, it just took 4 years, and for Facebook, 2 years. Not only that, if we look at the economic development, for UK, it took almost 100 years to double its GDP. For US, 50 years, and for India, just 12 years. Now this gives you a little understanding or the peek into the word velocity, whether it is in the world of technology or it's the world of national development or GDP. This is the speed at which we are growing today. And then I looked at some data points on what is the mix of various population from different generations in the corporate world. And to my surprise, as we speak today, we have just about 35% of our corporate employees are belonging to the millennial generation. And in next 5 years, that number is going to move up to 50. And by the end of 2025, 75% of the employees in the corporate world will belong to the millennial generation. Now, we are today in a state closer home in India, where we are approximately, even if we take the conservative figure, growing at the rate of 7% CAGR on our GDP, which means that from 2 trillion to move to a 4 trillion GDP in next about 7 to 8 years, it's going to take for this generation to really make the hard and the soft contribution into this economy. And with that in mind, I would like to call upon my co-panelists to give some opening remarks, because this millennial population that we are talking about is the critical one, very much driven by digitization, by flexibility, and above all, by the reward and recognition. So, understanding the velocity in the context of millennials is very critical for us. And now I'd like to invite my co-panelists to give some opening remarks. Indira?
Can you hear me? Working. So before I start, a quick snap poll. How many in the audience are millennials? Just raise your hands. Ah, really millennials. Okay, so that's a small, it looked like what, 20% I think in this audience. And he was calling out the stats. In Genpact, we are already 80% plus millennials in our demographic. So, and the challenge really is you have the population, which is 80% plus demographics, and the leadership is less than 2% who are, the demographics are millennials, and then less than 2% are millennials in the leadership. And I think HR came to around 10%. But having said that, I think the technology wave clashing with big data analytics, clashing with social and millennials, all of this is bringing about, as all of us are experiencing, a lot of changes in our organization. We started on, specific to rewards, we started on this journey almost 11 years ago, where we started the online reward platforms. A lot of organizations have those now, where it's almost like the reward programs in airlines. Managers get to give instant, we call them cheers. You get points online, and employees can then aggregate those over a period of time and redeem it online for, there's some 5,000 different products, everything from a spa vacation to a motorcycle to vouchers. And this was 11 years ago. And that was the first wave. Now we've progressed to looking at gamification. We're looking to now tie up the platform with social media, so you can do seamless integration and you can post the rewards. As you reward someone, it can send an automatic feed onto their social media, their Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn accounts. You get likes. You have walls where employees can build their own avatars and you can get likes, and that's how it's progressing. And I'll pause there. I want to know how many of the other organizations are doing something similar, and then we can come back to what it gives us and the benefits.
Thank you.
Thank you, Avdesh, and thank you, Indra, for sharing those thoughts, and a warm welcome to everybody. When I was listening to this topic, and Pooja was talking about millennials and what needs to happen, what was going on in my head was the last 3 exit interviews that I have done. And why did people leave us? Because as HR professionals, you hire people, that's a huge amount of effort. You invest in them, you develop them, and then they leave you. And that really hurts. And as I was reflecting, the couple of things that they shared with me, which I'd like to share with you. So the first one which came to my mind was about, I'm leaving this organization because, I'm just bored. I'm not very happy, or I'm just not feeling stretched enough in terms of what I'm doing. I'm not stimulated enough. The third one, I don't like my manager because, he just doesn't give me the environment, or there is some friction, and I just don't align with my beliefs and my values, as John was talking about. So I can't really work here. And people often leave managers, they don't leave organization. And the third one was about, I was never meant to be here. I was meant to be somewhere else. I was meant to be in a different sector. I was meant to be in a different industry. And for me, I would like to cut through all generations. And I think this is a very common factor. Why do people stay and why do people leave? They stay not because of just money or rewards or recognition. They stay because there is a certain alignment in what they want in terms of professional fulfillment and what the organization can provide. And to me, that's the biggest reward, or a recognition which an employee can derive by working in a particular place. Very often I find people don't leave for a markup of 20%. Yes, everybody has a price, and if you pay somebody double or triple their salary, they would get tempted. But people don't leave just for money. They leave for something bigger. And I think for us, the challenge is to understand what is that something bigger. Money beyond a point becomes a hygiene factor. It's important. I'm not trying to belittle it, but it is a hygiene factor. And once you have that hygiene factor, it's the motivators which start to play whether those employees will work in a productive way for you or they will stay. So from my point of view, I would actually focus a little more on the aspects of performance management and how you manage, which leads to this alignment and this feeling of feeling recognized. Some people have intrinsic locus of control, and some people have external locus of control. People who know what they want and they know how to achieve it are very satisfied once a task is finished or they've accomplished a goal. They don't need somebody to tell them that because they know it. But the problem is such self-aware population is probably lesser in terms of percentages. A lot of people are driven by how am I ranked, or how am I, rewarded, or what is my compensation. And that takes us back to the way we are educated in our schools as well, because everything is about relativities. And that is why sometimes organizations get obsessed with, bell curves, or, how am I paying this person vis-a-vis that? If I give somebody a galaxy of thanks, or did my peer get it? So I don't know what the real answer is, but I think sometimes people's own beliefs and their locus of control drives the way they like to be recognized and rewarded. It's very difficult to say what works for all. I don't think one size fits all. So in my view, any reward or any performance feedback has to be real. It has to be something which people relate to and they feel connected with. It has to be relevant to the context that they're operating, and it has to be recent, to something that they have experienced recently. And I think a combination of performance management, a combination of their own values and beliefs, and a combination of course, reward and recognition is really what leads to retention. So to me, rewards and recognition is equal to retention, which is equal to productivity, and that is what we're here to debate about.
Thanks, Anu. I will give my perspectives on the topic, and we hope as a panel that we will cover a set of views before we open the floor for a discussion, because we do not assume or pretend that we have answers to all questions on this topic. We hope that those in the audience will have their own set of perspectives, which we also as a panel hope to learn from. If you go to really why awards and recognition is needed, if you look at the three corners, and it's a very basic need for each one of us. The first one, of course, is the emotional component. The theory on this is very old. The need for recognition far surpasses any other need you might have. But the whole thing is you feel happy about it. There's a genuine grin on anyone's face when you say a job well done and if you mean it. So that's the first fundamental piece. Secondly, all of us like receiving gifts or an award. So there is a very intrinsic financial need behind why these things make great sense. The last one of this corner is really it throws up somebody as, okay, this person has done something great, and you make it a showcase for others to learn from, to emulate, to take example from. So you put a person on a pedestal. If you take these three things, there's one more thing which surpasses all these three, is the timing. Now a reward given very late in the day or too late is really not much of a point, and that brings to the theme of the conference, the velocity. The second important aspect which I wanted to stress on is that what we are seeing is actually a merger of personal and official worlds. Anything, for a long time you went for office, and I went to office and did office kind of things, and you came home and did home kind of things. Today there's really the barrier between these two is not very clear to most of us. And I don't think it's a millennial specific thing, because I think rest of us have learned that equally well. take an example. I mean, they talked about the selfie. So many of you, I'm sure, would have taken selfies or at least told your friends that you are at this great conference, and you would have got a lot of likes. Send the same picture to your boss and see how many likes you will get. So there is a need and there is a facility today available for instant recognition, and we are all using it. And that's why some of these social sites are such great hits, because they cater to a very fundamental need many of us have. Whereas managers or many of the people we work with culturally do not really like to recognize that openly, because of course the first thing you'll think is this person will come and ask me for a promotion next. How do I deal with that? But it's also a very, very strong cultural drawback that we don't really want to openly say a job well done instantly, and then the moment has passed because somebody else on their personal world has already said great job done and 200 likes and 300 likes, and it keeps going on and on. And the last corner when this personal and professional worlds meet is the whole aspect of technology going far ahead of the one where you just go and pat somebody on the back. It's sometimes a great thing, sometimes not a great thing. People still need a hug. People still need to feel wanted. So how does organizations cope with this? My friends on the panel already spoke about technology being available. So today technology is available, and I am sure most of the organizations of whom you belong to would have some facility or the other where this makes this possible. It is possible to deliver rewards instantly to anyone. It goes in the form of e-vouchers or anything like that. But there's also this big aspect of, is this all to this recognition business? One more example. Now, I mean, this is really far out, but this is the best one I could think of. Now, prizes like, for example, a Nobel Prize is something which is rare. It is given once in a while, and people wait for it, and some of them don't even achieve it in their lifetime because they don't give it to you when you're dead. Now, an organization needs both this instant reward scheme as well as something which is truly up there, which is rare. So it's a bridge of both. It's not a question that because technology has made things possible, instant rewards are possible, we do away with the core thought through and well evaluated program in a company. So you need a combination of both, something which is really aspirational, something which is more instant. So with this, I will give it back to Avdesh. And
Yeah, so a few things that I thought I can share from our own organization, which we did. So almost 3-4 years back, we decided to take a call to move away from reward and recognition and just keep recognition and remove rewards. So in our organization today, we do not have any material reward presented anymore. We have just stopped that. And for recognition, what we have introduced is we have face-to-face meetings of these, because in our organization, the average age is around 27, 28. And we have organized for recognition every week. These young people who need to be recognized get face time because they value that a lot with the exec-com members. And for each division, there are designated exec-com members from other divisions who would actually spend an hour or two every week meeting these people who have been recognized in their divisions, and they would come and talk about what they have been recognized for. Apart from that, obviously the other small things like, giving a card or thank you card or appreciation card, and we have also now introduced that at peer-to-peer level, and that is something which really motivates our people. We have completely gone away from giving trophies or a holiday package or a dinner or things like that. And we find that this has been working very well with our population as of now. And the second thing that we have started introducing is that we have started launching a lot of projects across the organization where we typically go and pick people who are recognized on many occasions to lead those projects, which is outside their own division. And some of these people appreciate that a lot. In fact, many of our own employee engagement activities are now being carried out by the business people. HR has just moved away from the lead role in that, and there are committees that are made, they are given their budget, their planning, and everything is carried out by them. So I have seen a very, very dramatic shift in especially this population, millennials that we are talking about, in liking to be recognized more than looking at material rewards. The other shift that we have just made this year is we have this mid-year review system, and we found that across the globe, not just in India, especially the youngsters were finding it a bit too much of a painful HR process that they have to spend time upon. So this is the first time where we have completely moved away from that, and we have left it for the employees as well as managers to voluntarily use the system, do it or not do it. We have even removed the rating scales that we used to do for that. And we will, we are going to study the impact of this, we are going to study what the learnings are from this, and we are very much keen on moving away from the mid-year system completely if that's where the real benefit is drawn out from. So one of the things that I thought would be very interesting, and I'll throw this question to the panelists maybe, is that the research is showing that about 84% of the millennials today, they value recognition more than anything that the organization would offer as a reward. So this is, again, a research. That's where the shift is going from material rewards to material recognition. And I don't know how you people feel about it.
I think that's a little radical. It's radical. I mean, it's interesting. I haven't thought about it. They're doing away with material rewards altogether. It's a radical thought. See, what we've attempted to do is, to tying to what Richard said, is have multiple channels of recognition. So don't just use one channel, because again, there's research that also says that the more channels you use, the better the chances of engaging. So combination of recognition. So, and I'll give you a simple example. While you can have individual awards, one of the things we are always trying to do as the HR group is drive culture, right? So how do you enable culture? One of the things for us was that we want the organization to become more technologically savvy, more digital, and that's the culture change we want to bring about. So we started this game. It's actually, like you talk about gamification, we have something called a Tech Quotient program running, and you get points for doing multiple things. So you join a tech talk, you get points. You give an idea on a technology improvement or a solution, you get points. And all of that gets tracked, and there is a leaderboard which is publishing it on a real-time basis, and you can go and see where you stand vis-a-vis other employees on that technology quotient chart. And it's caught on. I mean, people have started adopting technology much more because they just want to see their points go up, and every quarter they get a mail which says, what's their tech quotient number? And it works. So it ties into, there's no material reward per se, but yeah, just the feeling of being recognized by peers is a good incentive and drives engagement. And we've seen the benefit of technology. You get to track everything. So if it moves, you can measure it. And we found that people who get rewarded with material rewards, our penetration is approximately 50% in the organization. They tend to attrite at 10%, whereas the ones who don't get rewarded are attriting at almost 36, 37%. So that's the quantum of difference between those who get a reward and those who don't. So it ties into your whole engagement, retention, rewards. How do we pull all of this together?
Great, thanks, Indra. So I think very similar, if you just focus on millennials, in Citibank, recently we introduced something called a career lattice in the sales and distribution group. Because, you know, this is your junior sales force on the ground who's going out on behalf of the bank, acquiring cards, loans, whatever, you know, our products are on the retail side. And we were actually facing quite a high attrition because, you know, these are people with 1 to 3 years of experience, they're very marketable, and you know, there are enough opportunities in India for this job vertical. What we realized in some of our focus groups is what they're looking for is growth. Money will come, but what they're really looking for is growth. And they want to know, well, not instantly, but quickly enough, How are they faring versus that growth? And that feedback was very relevant for us because that went into forming these career lattice, which essentially is saying that every year, this is the way you're moving in terms of your growth ladder, which is defined, some in terms of money, some partly in terms of designations, and a bit of job growth or enhancement because you have grown. And what we realized, even though the delta growth in terms of job enhancement may be 10-15% in line with their performance ratings, it was very important for them. It was very, very important for them to know, how am I growing? Am I on track? Because in the absence of that information, they would go and look for a fancy designation in another company or look for a so-called promotion in another company. So I think that's been a huge success for us. It's actually decreased our attrition level for the sales, retail sales force by almost 10%. I was trailing at about 25%, which is, well, okay but as per the industry norms, but we wanted to get it down, and we're trailing today at 15 to 16%. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I think that the learning for us was, again, the growth piece is important, and more importantly, being explicit about is important. Focusing on performance is important, but focus on strengths. Don't keep focusing on weaknesses, because every individual has certain strengths. Build those. Make sure their development needs are not derailers. But very often as HR community, we keep focusing on what are the development needs and how can I help you, improve on that. How about focusing on what are your strengths and how I can make you even greater on that, making sure your weaknesses are not derailers. So those were our learnings, and I'm very pleased and actually very proud about the fact that it's really helped the business contain some of those attritions, which actually has contributed towards productivity as well.
So I'll quickly close with a case study of what we did, and it's a little wacky thing which we did around a year back, and it had results which we really didn't think of when we went about that. So we said at the end of last year during the holiday season, we will give 1,000 people an iPhone, and that was really something not commonly done because it's an expensive product. It has just been released, and it's something which you don't think of ordinarily, but we said we did do that. Of course, I learned a lot in terms of cross-border transfer of iPhone, which is a separate subject on some other panel somewhere else. It's not that easy as it looks because countries' rules and tax rules are quite weird that way. But that is an aside. But what had happened is nobody knew this was coming. So people were called, and you had this manager just give out an iPhone, and it was unbelievable to see this reaction because actually some managers made a joke out of this. Please come, I want to issue you a warning letter, and then this guy gets an iPhone. And more interestingly, we realized that it was not the product itself. They wanted to pose for pictures as this iPhone group. So they wanted pictures with the CEO saying, okay, these are the guys who got this phone, and this is the phone group, and actually many of them don't even use the phone because they actually gave it to somebody in their house. But the fact that this was done, and the newspapers carried it, and the amount of Facebook likes it got. So it shows that if you think differently once in a while, that also has a lot of impact, which is not the common one. We still do a lot of the usual ones also, but this is an interesting case study I thought I will share with you.
So thank you, Richard. And I think we'd like to take some questions from the audience now. Yes, please.
Check.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chandan, and I'm from an organization called Healthify Me. We do run corporate wellness programs, and my question is about the differentiation between the rewards and the recognition part that you were talking about. So in terms of giving recognition, it is still seen as something that's quite an abstract concept. And so how do you kind of drive the motivation amongst the employees that, getting to talk to your CXO level representative is kind of a great thing for you to experience? And how do you kind of motivate them about doing that?
Okay, so I'll take that question. So a couple of things. We used to have about 5 years back rewards to the extent of foreign trips and so on and so forth. I'm just giving you one extreme example. And then we realized that this was not really working out because there were limitations in terms of number of people who you could actually reward. And we also found through our own small group discussions that people are looking out for more of intangible stuff. You know, they want to be recognized for the work they have done. They want to be recognized instantly. They don't want to wait for an annual town hall or a function. And more importantly, all these, particularly this population, the millennials, they are looking for a very quick growth in their own capabilities and learning. And they see a face-to-face interaction with senior management and senior people as one of those. Apart from that, they do get certificates and notes and cards and sometimes a bouquet or something. That's obviously there. So two things that changed. One, the number of recipients of the recognition actually grew up many folds. So when there was a reward system, we could do, say, 100 over a year on a population base of 3,500. But with recognition, this has almost gone to almost 1,500 to 2,000. So you actually get more people into the fray, and this population wants recognition. I mean, once we have talked to them, we have found nobody has come back saying, oh, why don't you reinstitute those rewards? So that's our own experience, and I'm sure this will vary from company to company and industry to industry. It will definitely vary, but in our case, we have seen that success.
So I want to paint a little bit of a picture about the future, because we've talked about what's already happening. You know, I thought in the earlier session we touched upon it, that so far as a group, we're used to, looking at employees as an amorphous, homogeneous group, maybe differentiated by band or geography, business units. These are the traditional demarcations that we've applied between employee groups. As technology, as analytics catches up, you can actually start targeting your employees like micro consumers. So the way we are doing in B2B marketing today, or B2C marketing rather, even B2B is evolving. B2C marketing is evolving. You open Gmail and you're typing and you're writing an email about going on a vacation to Hawaii, you start getting pop-ups which give you hotel names in Hawaii, right? Because everything is getting tracked and you're getting targeted as a micro consumer. That's the technology that will come in down the line, right? We can already start to track traffic patterns, weather patterns, to predict employee productivity, right? And that sort of algorithms are getting built. And you can start, very soon down the line, you will be tracking Facebook posts, Twitter posts, to see what is the sort of recognition a person likes to get. Each individual will be different, is different. Some will want to meet the CXO, some will want money, some will want a handshake. Everyone will want different things, and you can start tracking and targeting reward programs based on individual preferences as you start to track the data.
Any? Yes. Here, please. Here we have many
Check.
hands. Okay.
Hi, my name is Preet. I'm from Adidas Group. I had a question for Indra. You said that, your 80% workforce is millennials. And the people who are managing, they're not, and they're just 10%. So I really, personally feel that there is a lot of gap in the thinking of the managers and the millennials. Because we are in HR fraternity, we agree to these facts and, kind of try to keep ourselves updated with, what's happening, how can we do it. But, how do we bridge that gap? At your workspace, are you doing some initiatives, or, how are you building that culture is what I wanted to know.
And that's a great question. I don't think we've cracked it completely, but I'll give you some examples. So I talked about how we're trying to change the culture and make the organization more tech savvy. We're actually going to run a program for HR people where we get everyone in a room and all of us practice tweeting and doing all of it. It doesn't come naturally to me. Listen, I'm Gen Y. It doesn't come naturally. I don't use Facebook. I don't wait for the likes. It's not natural to me. So how do we get everyone together and get them to start using social media more and seeing the way our employees want to interact with each other, the tribes that they build? We are trying to get those trainings done, but that's one small answer. It's about a mindset shift. It's about reverse mentorship in some cases. You have to do a bunch of things to get this culture changed and get this mindset all pervasive.
Thanks.
I'll just add to that. Organizations are no different than a family. So we all have parents, I have children, we are all three different generations, and we coexist, and we coexist well. I think when you have different generations working together, it's incumbent on each generation to educate each other. So there's a lot which I think Gen X, which I belong to, has to learn and has to change in the way they work. Similarly, it'll be Gen Y, which will have to be made sensitive. So very often when we have sessions, and we actually have a generations network in City, which only focuses on various generational, I won't say issues, but how you bring various generations together. But I think this is actually a continuous issue, because the next generation which will come will probably think millennials and Gen Y are outdated.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of, you have to continuously see what is the best way of working together. And I just kind of go back in terms of how we exist as a family and apply the same model to organizations.
We have a question here. Yeah.
Okay.
Better? Hi, my name is Pallavi Mishra, Hewlett Packard. I would like to take you back to the opening remark in John's address, where he says that CEOs across the region and industry are grappling with the situation where there are young, bright, high potential people are very, very worried of putting their hands up and accepting managerial positions, saying that we don't want your job. What we're looking at is work-life balance. In the era that we exist today, where we're ultra competitive and with organizations having the kind of maniacal focus that they have on numbers and ROIs, how is it that we can make it all happen for millennials to put up their hands and say, yes, we accept the responsibility and move ahead?
Maybe Richard here. Yeah.
Okay, that's a fascinating question, and something we grapple with very often. And there are two sides to this. So on one hand, many of them actually want to become managers because they want to be called managers. They don't want to manage anybody, which I'm sure all of you do see that every day. On the other hand, we do want them to take up responsibility. Now this so-called manager, at least I feel, is largely a creation of the industrial world of the past, in the sense that you wanted somebody to file reports and manage people as if people will misbehave otherwise. It is gradually the role of this manager is becoming more of a coach, a mentor, somebody whom you look up to. Now, if you take this concept as a manager is somebody whom I look up to, then many of them will be willing to take it because there's a great recognition for anyone to have. So in many of our minds, what we've done is, if we change this concept and say this manager means something very different, we are seeing a bit of success. I'm not saying we have solved this problem totally, because we still have those issues in terms of, do you appraise people correctly? Do you give feedback correctly? Do you mismanage people that they leave your organization? That's a very large challenge, which I'm sure every one of you are grappling with, that putting up people in roles of responsibility much before they are ready to take on. But the other concept that manages the coach, a mentor, somebody you look up to, many more people fit in more readily. So I think we are in a very transition phase, and this is something which, as all of us in HR need to realize that. And how do you transition? This is not going to happen overnight, that we will suddenly change from one style of management to the other, but this is something worth thinking about. So thank you very much for your question. Brilliant.
Yeah. Next, yes, please.
Carry on.
Oh, sorry.
Carry on. Pick it up.
Okay.
Check.
Okay, why don't we already hand over the other mic to...
Hi, I'm Shampi from NIIT, and this question is to Avdesh. It was very interesting the way you said that you've made the shift to recognition. That really resonates with me, because I do believe that being valued and knowing that one is contributing is the core to retention. What I want to ask you is that when you said that you organize for people to come and meet the ExCom, it's still being organized. I am concerned about how can this entire thing be self-driven and self-organized, in the sense that if there's a reporting manager and there's a team member, how can we build a culture of appreciation where it is not monitored, it is not organized, it is strictly between the reporting manager and the team member, and it is self-driven. Do you have any thoughts around that?
So when I said we organize, we have an execcom meeting every week, and we have the first agenda is if there are people who have to be brought into the meeting as recognition, and there are nominations that come in advance, and the managers write to us, and we have those people and the citation and everything, and that's how it's done on a regular basis. So it's quite self-driven from that perspective. A manager can write a note to the divisional head saying, I want to recognize this person for this in the execcom meeting. That's how we do it. But let me also tell you that there's no perfect way of doing this. This is a huge effort that we are putting in. There are pockets of people, there are some people who will still look forward to something more material. But we have been talking about it in various forums that we want to move away from this, and we want to keep recognition because it's of a higher order, etc., etc. We try to do a bit of selling and positioning it through the divisional heads and through the managers and senior managers across the organization. So a bit of effort on talking about it is required at all levels, and that's where the initiative needs to come.
I have a question.
Please. Yes.
So,
yeah.
It's about the generations that you were talking about. Now, every 3 years there is a generation change. So, now that you already indicated, now managers are completely different in the way that they are wired about recognition, the way they talk. For an example, I see a lot of managers from my interaction. For them, recognition is always an award or a reward or giving a kind of a kudos or something like that sort. Vice versa, people who are just into the job market, the 5 years, 3 years, 5 years experience, they're very clear and they say, if you have to recognize me, just give me a higher growth in a shorter period, right? Have we ever brought these two generations together and created a common pact about saying, this is your career ladder, this is your recognition ladder?
Anu, talking about.
I think it's a great question, and frankly, a reward or a recognition, in our view, should be looked at from the recipient's point of view. Because what you're trying to do is motivate somebody who gets it, not always the person who's giving it. And you do have those challenges. You know, you have those challenges where managers think that by giving a higher salary hike or by giving, a certain material gift, people will get motivated. And I think it's contingent on the HR community to bridge those gaps. Because increasingly, and you've heard 4 of us here on the dais, increasingly, material, rewards or recognitions count for, the base factor. It never counts for motivating people. So at least, I can vouch saying we've had very actively those discussions, and we are moving away from trying to do, a very, I would say, carpet bombing kind of an approach, ki chalo aaj, let's give out this gift because somebody has done a great job, because it'll be forgotten tomorrow. What you want is something long lasting. So when you're talking to the managers, my advice would be talk about the impact of the award and how long it's going to last and how relevant it will be for the individual. No manager wants to spend the money to see it's not going to have an impact, and hopefully that will help them align.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a question. My name is Rajrupa. I come from NetScribes, which is basically a research and content solutions firm. I happen to head the HR division over there, and we are pretty perplexed about the fact that we are trying to revamp our reward system. And the contradiction that we are facing is that in terms of recognizing people for achievements, we rely a lot on nominations from reporting managers in terms of people who have achieved a certain target or showcased a certain performance or shown a certain proactiveness or leadership ability, so on and so forth. But we rely on nominations, and in terms of awards for trainers or awards for people who have acted as effective buddies for new joinees, etc., HR plays a role there. But somehow the management and even us, we are a little perplexed about this, that nominations happen to be a limiting factor, because often each manager is not as sensitized as the other to showcase their performers and ensure that the recognition is given to the requisite person. So in that case, apart from the fact that, like the nominations are vetted with the revenue figures or the other factors that are there in terms of each screening of the nominations that come in, what are the other ways in which we can ensure that the performers don't get left out, other than just relying on nominations?
Yeah, thanks for your question. I think we solved it without thinking too deeply on this. It's very simple. So we allowed people to nominate themselves, we allowed peers to nominate, and we allowed managers to nominate.
Yeah.
It works fine because each category gets its own set of people who want to be put up. And then of course, you select. Actually make rewards a little more plentiful at a certain level, so there's much more to take. And what happens is this breeds more. Okay, so the next cycle, you will see much more nominations come. It doesn't happen in one shot. There's a little bit of time lag, but it does happen. So that's just.
Yeah.
No, just my suggestion was just give it a little time. It will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take the last question here. Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sudhit Maroli from onehourlearning.com. Maybe I'll ask this question to Richard. How do we keep the R&R process very objective? Let me take this iPhone example. While it's wonderful that 1,000 folks actually got iPhone and felt happy, the unwanted repercussion or consequences also that a lot of other folks who were deserving but left out actually felt demotivated. So how do we ensure that, number one, the parameters selected are objective, not based on nominations alone? And secondly, how do we also ensure that people who are deserving candidates who are left out also feel really motivated by this?
It's a good question, and I know that aspect is there in all our minds as to whether they're rewarding friends and relatives really. But one manager told me this, and I'll quote what he said. He said, if you had asked me to give out many iPhones, I would have a problem. But I have to choose that one guy, it's very easy, because I can't lie when I'm choosing very few. So when the trick is when you're doing very few, and sorry, I got the number wrong, it was 3,000 iPhones and not 1,000. So when you're choosing very few, it's easier to choose the best. But when you're choosing a larger number, you make the reward smaller and numbers many, so you can actually give it out to more people. There is a last point I want to add on the comment you made, and this is something for all of us in HR. We sometimes worry too much about this misuse business, is my feeling. And for a long time, we've been getting a bad name because of this, because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, it's like what you study in physics. And the basic friction is always there. So I term it as a friction loss. So you will always find those few ones. You deal with the few, don't worry about the miss. Most of them people, if you trust them, they do it right. And I think at some point, we from HR at least should stop worrying about it beyond a point, because it's not really worth the effort.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I think.
Sir, last two questions, please. They've been waiting
we are running
time.
out of time. Okay, one last question. Okay, on.
Hi, I'm Avantika from PepsiCo. We are on a different journey right now, which is moving away from an individual behavior to team behaviors. And so we've moved away quite a bit from individual awards and to team awards. But I'd like to hear your experiences on that. And also because this is also linked to a cultural journey that we're making on behaviors. A lot of our awards now are around exhibiting the right behaviors. So again, on that, if you have any experiences, that you can share.
Okay, so all that I can share, and I'll sum it up with this answer and close the session. Sorry about the rest, but we will be around, so please catch us outside. I'm requesting my panel members. I know Anu has to rush back, but the rest of us will be around. Do catch us if you want some more inputs. One of the key things to understand is that all these rewards and recognitions are key to driving the right behavior, and which actually cumulatives builds the culture in the organization. And therefore, this is a very, very serious topic, and this is a very, very serious contribution that our fraternity, HR fraternity in particular, has to make to the corporate world. And therefore, we need to understand a lot before we really make a policy or a program around this. So we need to understand what our future business proposition is, what is the kind of culture we are trying to build, and what is the departure from the current culture that we have. What are the key values and behavior we want to instill in the organization. And then, after understanding all of that, we need to understand our employees and their types and what their needs and wants are, and then bring the two together to derive and devise a proper reward and recognition program. In the end, I would only say that as you heard, when Anu mentioned that it's like a family and there's a mix of various generations, we need to be sensitive and leverage into coaching and teaching one another. I think that's one great idea we can walk away with and bring in these kind of generations together to appreciate and understand, and then leverage on executing the reward and recognition system. I think all of us in this room today, we have a huge responsibility in taking this whole aspect of rewarding and recognizing millennials and the other generations, few of whom are still left around, in such a proper manner that we instill the right behavior to derive the right culture. And with that, I'll wish you all the very best, and thank you all the panelists. Thank you very much.